Good evening, Chair Mugler, Vice Chair Kilgore, members of the school board, Superintendent Shiflett, parents, students, staff. My name is Tiffany Hardy and I'm your curriculum leader, and I'm excited to share an update on language arts K-12 for Hampton City Schools. This is the vision statement that our department has developed. It's our guiding mantra for the year, and I'll give you a moment to read it.
Thank you.
If you'll take note in those final colored items, articulate speakers, active listeners, effective writers, and independent strategic readers. This is what we want to give to our students. These are the skills we want our children to go to the next grade with, to move to the next level with, to go beyond school with. We feel this is what they need to be successful in school and beyond. Our team has some new faces this year. Debbie Faringer has returned to us as elementary teacher specialist. She was previously in the department serving as an elementary teacher specialist. She spent some time in our elementary schools as an assistant principal and has returned to us now, and she specializes in grades 3 through 5. Also serving our elementary schools is Darlene Ingram. She's continuing this year. She has several hats that she wears for us. She is our Early Intervention Reading Initiative Grant Coordinator, as well as our K-2 Teacher Specialist. She is also our point of contact for the UVA Masters in Reading cohort, and I'm very excited to share with you, thanks to Hampton City Schools, we've afforded a number of people the opportunity to work towards this, and they will be celebrating graduation in December of this year. Marcia Grant has recently joined us as secondary teacher specialist. She will support in grades 6 through 12, and she's joining us from Bridgeport Academy, and she has served there as a teacher as well as instructional leader. Beth Horn will be continuing to support us as our CITT, and Brenda Johnston will continue to support us as our administrative support specialist. In addition to our immediate team in language arts, we have a number of personnel who are supporting literacy throughout our division. Our human resources are quite extensive when it comes to language arts. We have approximately 600 K through 5 teachers who provide instruction in language arts. We also have over 200 teachers who support us in the areas of 6 through 12 in classroom instruction. We have direct support from 36 instructional leaders from our buildings, and each of these work towards the core instructional program. Focused literacy support and intervention also comes in many forms, including 24 early reading intervention assistants who serve our PALS identified students in K and 1, 22 reading specialist literacy leaders who support our elementary schools, 5 reading coaches that are a combined effort between Title I and language arts. Collaboratively, the 2 departments work with these individuals to provide coaching support in our Title I schools. Also a collaborative effort are the reading interventionists. These individuals also support our Title I schools, and they provide intervention to our Tier 2 students. We also have 9 reading teachers at the secondary level, and they work with our Read 180 program. This is going to be an exciting year for language arts. We have a number of changes. We are excited about many of them. I know change isn't easy for everyone, but there are a lot of things going in the right direction, both at the state level as well as in our local level. The biggest thing to focus on for this year is that the 2010 standards of learning from the state have been fully implemented. This means they are completely incorporated to all of our curricula, all of our resources, and all of our instructional programs. Something to note about the 2010 standards is that they have taken a good foundation of the previous standards, but they have made sure that all of the standards work with a vertical alignment or vertical articulation. So now there aren't any holes or gaps in the standards. When you go from K up through 12, there's a logical articulation in every single area. It's a good foundation or premise for our curriculum. Another area that we're going to be facing changes in will be our standards of learning tests. The tests naturally have to change to the standards, and there's increased rigor with the SOLs, and therefore there will be increased rigor in the tests. One of the places that you'll see the increased rigor is that some of the core skills have been moved into lower grades. So for example, research, which was heavily emphasized in 7th through 12th grade, has now been moved to an early introduction in 3rd grade. And there are several other areas in which you see that rigor being pushed down into those earlier grades. One of the key changes we're focusing on early this year is the writing test. And there are several changes to the writing test. One of them will be the inclusion of the technology-enhanced items that will require students to be able to not just choose one multiple choice item, rather they'll have to evaluate a large number of options to evaluate corrections in writing. That's for the multiple choice portion. For the direct writing portion, there's now a prescribed mode. In the past, the writing test was just an invitation to write, and students could respond in any mode they wanted. They now must respond in a prescribed mode. So our students in 5th grade will either get an expository or narrative. The children in 8th grade may have to respond in expository or persuasive. And our end of course will definitively be persuasive writing, and it will probably include the requirement of argument and counter-argument. And that is a very mature, sophisticated skill. We've already been aware of this change. It's embedded in all of our new curricula, and we're already hot on working with professional development with our teachers. So these are good moves forward, but we recognize that they are challenges that we face. Some additional things to point out is that the research will be in the writing SOL. STEMs have changed in the questions, and there's heavy emphasis on vocabulary, including word analysis strategies, key prefixes, key roots, etc. These are all very good things that students need to learn. We don't just teach to the test, we want them to be good, strong readers. These are skills that they need in order to be able to do that. Something that we're working heavily with is pairing passages. You'll notice that after the old SOL tests, students never tested like that again. They tested in much more rigorous ways. We would rather give them learning experiences and prepare for much harder tests that they will be facing later in life. So paired passages will be something we emphasize in instruction and assessment, as well as those vocabulary strategies. Our plan of action, how do we address these huge changes? Well, one thing is that we implemented word study 2 years ago in kindergarten, moved it up to 1st grade last year, and we have now trained all of our secondary teachers, and they are moving into implementing word study. And this is a differentiated approach to teaching students spelling, sound, concept of letter, concept of word, and we'll be continuing to spiral it up. Our literacy personnel last spring were repurposed, and individuals had the option to apply for the newly defined roles of literacy leader, coach, interventionist. Several wanted to go back and teach in the classroom, and then others took on the literacy roles. But by repurposing these roles, we were able to make sure that every single elementary class, every single elementary school would be directly supported by a literacy leader. And they are working with literacy teams to build action plans at each school to address the specific needs of their schools. We also are continuing to work on fidelity to the model. We have a very prescriptive model for both K-5 as well as now 6-12 instruction. And those designs are research-based. And working with the division leadership team, school administrators, our department, and Title I, we've been able to identify where there are gaps or support needs for instruction and making sure that we are maintaining fidelity to that model in order to maximize the learning that can occur in those classrooms. We also are incorporating professional development. In many formats, we are doing face-to-face as well as videos, webinars, a variety of delivery systems so that teachers can continually get information that they need in order to improve their instructional strategies as well as respond to all of the changes that they are facing. We started with professional development in the spring and continued it through the summer and now have done so in the fall, and we will continue to do so. Also, differentiated text selection. This is going to be critical. In K-5 last year, we had heavy emphasis on using the DRA, the Developmental Reading Assessment, in order to identify level and stage of reader. K-5 teachers then use that information in order to choose leveled text to teach students, meet them where they are, and take them to the next level. As I've shared with the board previously, if you try to share a text with a child that's way above their level, they can access barely any of it. Or if you try to use a text that's way too below their level, they become bored and understimulated. We want to meet students at their level so that they can increase significantly. We are carrying that work into 6-12. This means no more of the teaching the same story to all the children in the classroom. It's about identifying the level of the child and making sure you choose texts that are appropriate to that child. Choosing appropriate literature to meet the needs of the curriculum and the students. We're using the SRI, the Scholastic Reading Inventory, which is an aspect of the Read 180 program, to identify the Lexile scores. That's the reading level of the individual students. And then teachers will choose text accordingly. These are research-based best practices. We emphasize the need to choose appropriate differentiated delivery systems and text in order to help students improve their actual reading comprehension. We also implemented a new curriculum design. In the secondary grades in 6 through 12, we moved away from an exclusive genre-based system, because if you only ever teach one genre, for example, fiction or poetry at one time, children learn a lot less about that actual genre. If they compare it to other genres, they learn a lot more about it. That comparison contrast is exactly what helps them to understand the features of a text versus the non-features. And so every single unit is not a genre base. It will include fiction and nonfiction, as well as other genres within. They are all centered around an essential question and a theme. And the teachers have been getting training from the summer through into the fall on how to choose texts, how to develop writing prompts, how to use media in order to answer those essential questions. And the intent is that at the beginning of the unit, they have a little bit of an understanding of that essential question. Through reading, discussion, writing, creating, and thinking, at the end of the unit, they have a much deeper understanding of that essential question, as well as a deeper understanding of the world around them. We work on a tiered intervention approach. Tier 1 is our core instructional program delivered to all students. This is the one I was just talking about with the curriculum design and the 2010 standards of learning. This is the foundation of all instruction, delivered in the classroom by a single teacher or a pairing or combination of teachers. In the elementary level, it's a combination of whole group instruction and small group rotations. Those are prescribed rotations with a specific amount of time. The flexibility for the teacher is which text they choose and the strategies they use in each of those small group rotations. At the secondary level, it's the essential question and the texts that they choose that allow that differentiation. Tier 2, these are our targeted intervention students, students who are not meeting our expectations, who are not able to be to perform or to meet proficiency with Tier 1 instruction alone. These students need more support, more assistance. In the elementary level, we use the PALS and the DRA data to help identify students who need targeted specific intervention. These students receive that intervention in small group settings, and they can receive it from the reading interventionist, the reading specialist, the classroom teacher. Any of those combination can work with the student either during the language arts block or during the intervention block. At the secondary level, we use the SRI to identify students or previous SOL performance, and then those students are targeted with intervention through the Read 180 program, and that's delivered by the Read 180 teacher, and it receives an elective credit. And then the smallest number, usually less than 15%. These Tier 3 students need intensive intervention. These are your students, we've attempted Tier 1 intervention, and it hasn't been enough. They need and deserve more. These students are eligible for push in or pull out intervention support in the elementary schools, and that can be delivered either through a special educator, or it can be delivered by the ESL person, or by reading personnel. Depending on whether you're a Title I or non-Title I school, you may have different personnel available to support these students. We have worked closely with the special education department to select a program, and it is a combination program that has direct instruction and guided reading support that is developmental based on the ability of the student. And that program is through Voyager, and it's either the Read Well program, which is our K-1, or the language program that runs from 2nd up through 12th grades. At the secondary level, we continue to use the language program. The majority of students who receive this do tend to be students with special education support, but not always, and it's not exclusionary. They also can receive the Read 180 program, and you can see that special educators, ESL personnel, regular educators, reading personnel, etc., can provide that level of support. The most important thing to remember in this is that we look no longer at the individual by the grade they're in, more at the stage of reading that they're in. And if we address the stage they're in, we're more likely to help them make more significant gains and catch up to their same age peers. If we continue to only deliver to them what's expected on grade level, they will actually fall further behind than if we did nothing at all. And what we want to do is make sure we are pushing them the right direction. Our curricula are accessible on SchoolNet. They are aligned to the 2010 SOLs. They were developed by our department along with feedback and work from core teachers at each grade level to provide recommendations on text selection and strategies and key practices. And they have been implemented completely as of this fall. We piloted 2 grade levels with the new template, kindergarten and 6th grade last year, took feedback from teachers who were teaching it in order to make appropriate revisions before implementing completely for all of the grade levels this year. The ways in which we'll be working to build capacity with our instructional personnel. We've been offering professional development since June. We made offers to teachers to attend professional development over the summer and/or in the fall during the pre-service week. We offered word study to our grade 2 teachers. We're now following up with word study reviews for kindergarten and 1st grade teachers who've already had training but would like some refreshers, some new ideas, as well as any new kindergarten and 1st grade teachers who haven't previously had the training. We've also been offering literacy and intervention planning for our administrators during the Administrators Academy this summer, so that all administrators are well versed on the practices and the support we have to offer. We offered training on our new curricula from kindergarten through 12th grade, as well as instructional strategies, including how to choose level text and how to pair passages. We'll be continuing that support in multiple modes throughout the year. Our ongoing includes the word study, the writing changes. We started immediately the first week of school, sharing with teachers what the significant changes are, how to help prepare. And again, we are not teaching to the test. We are helping teachers discover better ways to make better writers so that regardless what they see on the test, they'll be prepared to respond to it. We're embedding the technology-enhanced items, and we've been doing training on how to help teachers create their own grammar and vocabulary practice items using the technology-enhanced items so that they can use flip charts on the Promethean boards and embed them right into their instruction with authentic text so that it's a part of instruction and not a test prep technique. We're also working on the SRI. We've prepared several videos for teachers to walk them through how to use it, how to embed it into their instructional planning, as well as a reading comprehension strategy series that we have been doing with our instructional leaders and will be continuing this year, and then our media literacy, supporting teachers on how to use media to excite kids to the world that is available to them so that they can become consumers and users of information. We also provide monthly support. We work with our instructional leaders on a train-the-trainer model in several areas, having those instructional leaders take materials, resources, and strategies back to their schools to present. We also meet with our reading specialists on a monthly basis to talk about intervention strategies, new research in literacy, and ways to support their teachers and their students in the area of literacy. We meet with our reading coaches with Title I. We provide the content support so that they are implementing and they are providing support that is consistent with the model that we have developed. We've created electronic newsletters to keep a constant line of communication and updates and reminders to the teachers so that they've got a quick checkpoint to figure out where they should be, as well as webinars on key issues and topics that are critical to the teachers this year. Each of our elementary schools has been working to develop their school-level literacy plans using their literacy leaders, using their existing data to identify which students need intervention support, as well as which teachers might need instructional support. It's been very exciting to listen to a lot of our reading specialists share with us as they learn which teachers are now coming out and showing their leadership and wanting to help other teachers in their buildings. And so what they're doing is using this as an opportunity to identify and rein in some of those resources and use them to their advantage. We'll also be doing walkthroughs to check on the fidelity to the model, as well as identify instructional strategies to share with others. We're continuing to use the online Hampton City Schools benchmarks as a quarterly opportunity to collect data. Our reading support specialists and our interventionists are keeping intervention documentation to help us track the progress for individual students. We also collect our data from PALS and the DRA to identify where our students are and to help measure growth. And we'll be doing the same with the SRI as we implement it this year. And again, as you've heard from a lot of our award winners this evening, and you've heard from each of the departments, we truly commit to every child, every day, whatever it takes. And I hope that you see from this presentation that our instruction is no longer one size fits all. It's very focused on the idea that we have to learn the needs of each child and use our resources to meet those needs.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy.
You're welcome.
Questions from board members? Ms. Henry?
That SOL test is going to be writing test is going to be a lot more difficult. It's a lot more difficult to be given a passage and say, edit this, than to be asked, does this need a comma or does this need a capital letter?
Well, there won't be editing the entire passage, but you're absolutely right. The rigor is going to be intensive. As a matter of fact, what will happen is they'll be given a passage, and then they'll be given a part of it, a sentence or 2 sentences. And in it, there will be errors, and then they will be given multiple, for example, let's say it's punctuation, multiple forms of punctuation, and then asked which ones go where. And so the number of permutations on the options of how many different places they could go within this sentence is almost limitless. And they have to get them all correct in order to get that one right.
It's also much more difficult in a limited time prompt to write a persuasive or a narrative instead of just a straight expository essay.
Fortunately, it's untimed.
What in the world is a paired passage?
Paired passages. When you pair passages, you see them on the SAT all the time. When you see 2 different texts that maybe either share a common theme, a common topic, a common background. For example, 2 articles written from 2 different papers around a recent event. One article written condemning individuals who have been bombing embassies, and the other one written condemning an individual who made a video that allegedly instigated those. And the student has to evaluate who are the audiences of those 2 different articles. What were the strategies and the stylistic features that the 2 different writers chose? They may have both included actual facts, but the bias that can be created by the way that you use those facts and the type of word choice and your syntax can be vastly different. And so the students will have to examine those 2 different texts and have to identify what's the common feature and then what were the choices the different authors made in order to accomplish the intended result. And that is the type of reading our students will need to be able to do. They need to be able to evaluate and judge and make decisions about text, not just look at a single text out of context.
Right. Okay. As your staff resources are aimed at early intervention, which all the research says we want to have kids to read on grade level by grade 3 and then life is good. But we know we have a number of children who are headed into secondary school and they are struggling still with reading. I see 9 teacher specialists in secondary. There are 10 secondary schools, not counting the multi-level schools. Read 180 is for any student. Is Voyager for any student, or is that aimed? It's not exclusively aimed at special needs students.
Right. Voyager is intended for your Tier 3 students.
Right. And that's a web-based program?
There's a computer aspect and there's a classroom aspect. And if you're talking about the Read 180, same thing. There's a software piece, there's a guided reading component. Actually, it has small group and whole group instruction, and the teacher works guided reading with different groups, and then students are also on software and they're doing independent reading.
Is there any ability for students or parents to access those materials for extra support at home? Because we have many, many parents who would move heaven and earth to help their children at home if they had those resources.
At this time, I don't know of any of our students that are using the Read 180 at home. Those requests haven't come through me. Certainly something we can entertain or consider what the access would mean. The challenge is that they're server-based in order for the student to log on to. As a matter of fact, we're loading the SRI right now for our baseline assessment, and we're having to do it through each of the school servers. So even though it is internet-based, we have to have a server connection in order to do that. But those classroom teachers are trained in providing additional support, and there are other internet resources that are recommended to those students. And using the Lexile information, they make recommendations for appropriate text reading at home, as well as strategies to help the parents at home to help their children, because a lot of parents don't know how to help their children with literacy at home.
So the 180 is an elective period that students have access to through, say, 6 through 12?
Correct.
And the Voyager might be through a
also an elective. An
elective or part of studies.
Study skills. Embedded within a study skills, could be. Okay. Each school has the flexibility of choosing depending on how many students need it, when it needs to be offered in the day. They work very hard to make sure that they can pair staff with the students so that it's not only offered one time and then luck of the draw, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. They don't work that way. So each school has to be a little more creative to make sure that it's available to the students who need it. A large number of our Tier 3 students, by the time you get into the secondary grades, do happen to receive that additional special education support, but it's not exclusive. Yeah. So if there are students who are just regular education students who need that more intensive support, the Read Well, the language program, both of those work on language acquisition and decoding skills, whereas the Read 180 picks up after you've built those basic decoding skills and takes you into fluency and comprehension. And so the students who need that foundation level would be targeted for the Voyager program before the Read 180 program. But it is available to any student who's screened and identified. Now that we're using SRI for every single child 6 through 12, all 10,000 children will have access to it and will know their Lexiles. It will help to make sure there are no students slipping through the cracks.
Thank you very much.
Questions from other board members?
I have a quick question, and if you mentioned this in your presentation, then forgive me. You were saying so much, I was trying to write stuff down. The word study program for grade 2?
Yes.
What is that?
It's actually K through 2, and actually word study can go all the way up to high school. Word study is a differentiated approach to building recognition of letter, sound, up through words. And when you start with an emergent reader, for example, in kindergarten, they don't have that concept of what a letter is and the sound associated with it. Just teaching them the alphabet song that we love in order makes it so that a lot of children think that LMNOP is one letter.
Yeah.
And if you only ever show them the letters in order, then they can only tell you what a C is if they see it in between A, B, and D, E. So instead, you teach the students the letter independent for themselves, and then they study the letter compared to other letters that might be similar. And they do activities to teach them the sound that goes with the actual symbol so that they develop that letter concept or concept of letter. Then they build, as a beginning reader, they build into that concept of word where they're putting the letters together. Just recognizing words by sight is great until you come across a word you've never seen before. Just doing phonics makes you a great word caller, or it makes you a good decoder, but it doesn't help you to understand why sounds make the sounds that they do, or why they work in partnership with other letters. And what happens is kids who just learn phonics tend to have trouble with spelling because they don't understand the patterns or the sequences. So what word study does is it takes the best of word recognition, it takes the best of learning the letters and comparing them to other letters, and then same with different words, and it takes phonics and it puts them together and helps the students so that they can be better readers, better spellers, better writers. In order to do that, you have to make sure you're addressing the student at their level. So in a second grade classroom, you may have children who are still trying to learn that letter recognition, and others who are already on to more complex words. And as you go up in level by stage of reader and by grade level, you get into more complex. So students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade will probably be working on polysyllabic words, whereas in K1 and 2, they're working on the actual sound of individual letters and then building into words themselves. It's a differentiated approach. You lose that one-size-fits-all spelling list, and you individualize the lists. So student practice at home, everybody in the class is no longer learning the letter M. It's now this set of children over here, they're learning B and D. And this group over here, they're learning this other set. And so different children are progressing at their level. It doesn't slow a child down and hold them up. What it does is it holds them accountable to learning the foundation pieces before moving on to the next ones. Because if they don't solidify those foundation pieces, that's when you run into horrible spellers and challenged readers at the upper grades. You're welcome.
Other questions or comments from board members? Thank you so much, Mrs. Hardy.
Thank you very much.